Hello and welcome to this edition of Central Connecticut Now, the news show that brings you an up-close and personal view of the newsmakers in our area and the people that cover them. I'm Mike Schroeder, editor and publisher of the New Britain Herald and Bristol Press, and today my guest is the Mayor of New Britain, Erin Stewart. Welcome, Mayor.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Well, we've got a lot to talk about.
I think so.
In what's going on in the city.
And only a half hour, right?
That's right. Only a half hour. I'll have to hold you to that.
We'll try.
That's right. So, what are some of the most exciting things that are going on right now?
Everything.
Everything and anything.
Well, we recently had the dedication of the Beehive Bridge.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Iconic
I noticed the neon the other night.
Yes, yeah. It's lit up pink right now in order to celebrate Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
Okay.
It looks a little purple, but because of the reflection on the orange.
The orange,
yeah.
What are you going to do?
But it's pink. But that was the biggest thing, last month. I mean, really an iconic project that is going to make people look at that bridge and think, what is up there? I want to go visit New Britain. This is awesome. I tell everyone we can have nice things too, and we deserve the best. And that bridge reinforcement project, which is what it originally started at, that turned into a massive piece of public art with a lot of grant money from the state and federal government to make it happen.
How much was it?
It was about a little over $7 million, and over $4 came from grants, from Federal Transportation Authority grants, bus livability grants, state OPM grants. You got it. We write them all, and when you spend money wisely, they're more apt to give you more. So. And
that's over 72,
correct.
Right? And it's when you're driving through it, you'll see the yellow and orange spots, kind of.
You got it. Which is an ode to the city of New Britain.
Yeah.
And a lot of people always ask, what's with the bee thing? And the people say, oh, the mayor's obsessed with bees. No, I'm not obsessed with bees, I promise. On our city seal, they're from 1871, there is a beehive. And underneath it, our city seal, our city slogan in Latin, translated, means industry fills the hive and enjoys the honey. And there's 7 bees that are flying around the hive. Legend has it those represent the original 7 industries or companies that the city of New Britain was founded on. So this is an ode to who we are.
And one of them is certainly still here, Stanley.
Stanley Works, which is the other huge project that we have right now.
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, I throw you a softball, you're supposed to hit it. So
Energy and Innovation Park.
Yes.
We had the construction kickoff for that last week, which was all of our funding partners came together to officially kick off the first phase of construction of Energy and Innovation Park. And a lot of people are asking me, Mayor, what is this?
It's complicated. Yes. It's not an easy thing to understand.
No. If you imagine me, right? The first meeting we ever had with them was when I first took office, and they come in and they've got a binder about this thick. And they're talking, and I'm kind of looking at them with my eyes. I couldn't even, you have to really process what it is, because a lot of it is just really scientific talk that goes right over all of our heads. But I got it.
That's great. So
the cloud.
The cloud.
That's what it is.
This is where the cloud ends.
Right.
If you're going onto a computer, this is where you're connecting to.
You got it. When you're on the computer, surfing the web, or on your phone, everything has to go through some type of data center or cloud-based technology. That'll be in New Britain. And
it's all in buildings that were built in, the early 1900s?
Early 1900s, the World War II era, where the majority of the buildings that we're going to occupy were built, which is why exactly they wanted these properties, because they are built. The reinforcement is unbelievable. Rock solid. I mean, you're talking about, inches and inches thick of just concrete floors, floor after floor after floor.
So the buildings themselves were a critical cell in this project.
You got it.
Hard to believe, because those buildings have been empty for
decades.
Many decades.
At least 30, 40 years. Easy.
Yeah.
And they're ugly. For us who are in town every day, you look at them and you're like, oh my gosh, these are just such an eyesore. What's going to happen to these? And it's really nice to know that there's going to be life that will continue on in these buildings. And the buildings will look a lot nicer, I think, a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
as well.
Is there a plan to also work on the exteriors?
Yes, absolutely.
Wow, that's
And
great.
I think they understand that they're going to have to, the windows are going to have to be redone for proper ventilation.
Yep.
All of that, the power washing, the facades.
I know a lot of guys with rocks that'll provide that proper ventilation.
I know.
Which has amazed me in New Britain that there were so many windows that were still there after all these decades.
You got it.
So,
there's a series of, I believe it's about 5 or 6 buildings that are on the campus itself that are vacant. And then we have the buildings that were knocked down last year. And, there was a lot of controversy over those historical properties, but those buildings, they were not as structurally sound as the original buildings of where this project will be. So the first phase it's a lower blue building, and it's very inconspicuous. You won't really be able to tell.
So if you want to go see this project, you're not going to see it by driving by.
No. You're going to look at it and be wondering where is this going on. A majority of the activity now is happening on the inside. So phase 1 is going to be the installation of over 40 fuel cells indoors. This is going to be the largest indoor fuel cell technology in the world, really.
Meaning that there are some of these that are outside.
They're all inside. Yes.
In other locations.
Correct.
Is there why inside?
Safety, right?
Wow.
They'll not be exposed to the elements. They'll be long lasting, especially if they're enclosed. And the heat that they put up.
How big are these things? How big are these fuel cells?
They look like a pod, like if you were like a storage pod that you would have in your backyard per se, or if you're moving or something. That's exactly how big
and that size. It's not the size of like a railroad, a intermodal vehicle kind of thing, but maybe half the size.
You got it.
Okay.
And so there's going to be, I believe, 44 of them altogether inside that initial building.
So you can expect to see some cranes putting these things into
within the next couple of months.
Wow.
So the construction kickoff, we couldn't really call it a groundseeing, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't really have to break ground.
That's exactly what they don't want to happen,
exactly. Right? We could. So we'll start seeing them be delivered come the first of the year. You can only order a certain amount at a time, right? So Doosan Fuel Cells in South Windsor is making all of them for EIP.
So it's all local. Park. I mean, this is all local.
Connecticut made.
Wow.
Even nicer.
My understanding is that the closest data center similar to this is in Massachusetts somewhere?
Yes. Yep. There's a kind of a sort of similar one in Holyoke, but it's not going to be able to do the amount of data of what the New Britain one will do. And then you have Boston and New York City. So we really will be the only data center of its kind in between the two huge, Boston and New York City, huge cities. And it'll be the first one of its kind in the state of Connecticut, which is an incredible opportunity for the city.
So I was doing a little reading on this, and these fuel cells are actually energy producers.
You got it.
For these data centers.
Yes.
And that it's all very, very clean.
Yeah.
That the one thing I didn't know is what's the fuel for these things? Do they know?
It's a combination, I think, of don't quote, I don't know.
Yeah.
Quote me on this. I'm no scientist by any means. It's a combination of natural gas, I think CO2, and some use hydrogen.
I read the hydrogen piece.
I'm not sure what the components of these fuel cells will be. Department of Energy and Environmental Protection takes care of all of that.
You start thinking about, all the steam or whatever coming off of a NASA launch. From that.
Right.
Yeah.
And that will be energy that will be off-put from the fuel cells itself. So we have to create channels in order to gather all of that energy and put it into the other sites and the other buildings that will power the data centers.
Wow.
Now, there's also a really interesting component of this as well, that there's 6 acres of the property way in the back that there's going to be a hydroponic farm that is going to move in.
Wow.
And they are going to take a lot of that energy, the excess energy that the data center will not need, and take it and put it into urban farming.
How does that? How do you take energy and put it into farming? I mean, we're
That's why
starting
I
to get
said
into the. Ooh.
There's a lot of smarter people than I that
Yeah,
are working
wow.
on this. But again, it's all with the conduits and the piping and how.
But the whole
you're pushing that
idea is
energy
to
through.
use all of this energy
Correct.
right here.
You got it.
That's very impressive.
It's incredible. So, that this is all, phase one is getting the power provider, right? Getting the fuel cells in place. Phase two is putting the actual data center together. The farm will happen simultaneously. It's on a separate track. But the data center, getting that put together is phase two. And we're talking about 4 to 5 years just for phases 1 and 2 to be completed. So it's not like this is going to happen in 6 months because it's going to take a long time to get this up and running.
But you're waiting for that equipment to go in.
We are waiting with bated breath.
Because this is going to be a real revenue producer for the city, too.
Absolutely, absolutely. We worked out an agreement, a 20-year agreement with them that starts October 1 of 2019. And so that 20-year agreement is, again, a tax deferral, right? And let's be honest, we have to compete.
It's let's make a deal.
You got it. I mean, and even with creating this program to incentivize them to come to New Britain, they will still be our second or our third highest taxpayer within 3 years.
Wow, that's outstanding. What are we talking in terms of dollars?
We're talking about a couple $1 million a year.
Wow.
In taxes. That's a personal property. So let's think about it this way. The buildings are already there.
Yep.
So Stanley Works is already paying us the taxes on the structures itself.
Right.
This is tax on property, personal property, those fuel cells, which are...
We've been getting paid for the exteriors.
Correct.
Now we're going to get paid for what's inside. That's pretty important.
And that's really important to the city. I mean, every dollar that we get is a dollar that we are so grateful for.
That's right.
It's money that we have never had before. That is money that we'll continue to provide for our police, our fire, emergency medical services, our schools. And so we'll be able to hopefully do a lot of sustaining.
Are we going to expect to see tax cuts because of this?
No. It's not that much.
Nice try.
I know. As much as we would all like to hear that, no. I think if it was a much more substantial amount, easily.
When we're at the 20-year mark and this thing is totally built out,
Yeah.
what are we talking?
I don't know because it's going to depend on what happens with, phase 3 and 4.
Okay.
So this is just for phases 1 and 2.
Is that included in the 20-year plan, all the phases?
Phase 1 and 2.
Just 1 and 2.
Got
Okay.
it.
Could 3 and 4 happen
Yes.
over that period of time?
Absolutely.
Would they be in different agreement?
Yes.
That would extend probably further out than
They would
that?
have to be.
Okay.
Right. Well,
So basically it's a phase-in
That
of
would
taxes.
be, so yes, correct, it's a phase-in. Phase 3 and 4 of the project is new construction. So that's going to come with a different set of rules and regulations in and of itself. Phase 3 and 4 is new construction where we knocked down the old Stanley Works properties before. And so that new construction.
But there's expectation that there's going to be new construction in this
there
thing.
absolutely is.
So
there is no doubt about it that there
when you total all of these together, that's where you get the $1 billion?
You got it.
Okay.
Yep, $1 billion altogether, 4 phases estimated. And so those phases 3 and 4 are the buildings where you're going to see a majority of those jobs that we talk about too. Now those could be anything from your Googles of the world to Yahoo to call centers, anything that could use want to be close to the data storage that is right next door is what will be attractive for those empty sites.
Wow, that's really, really exciting for everybody.
It's transformative.
There will be some. There are construction jobs involved in this.
Oh, a whole lot.
On the front end.
Yes.
And my understanding is, although this isn't a big job producer to operate the centers themselves, there are high-level jobs involved in this.
Absolutely.
So
it won't be immediately, but in the long term, there will be a large number of jobs that created. Aside from the construction, we're talking permanent, jobs that will exist in those phases 3 and 4. with the companies that will want to be in those buildings.
So where are they on the commitment front? I mean, are there actually, is this a we will build it and they will come, or do we?
We certainly know that they will.
Yes.
Because of the demand all across the country for this type of energy, for clean, renewable energy, but reliable energy as well. And it's the way of the world that we live in.
Is there a site like this somewhere that that we could, look at as like illustrative of
Unfortunately, if you want to get on a plane and fly to Japan, I think that would be the closest.
I think I could probably get a reporter to take that assignment.
Yeah,
but that's
might be able to.
So this would be the first in the country?
Well, of this size, of this magnitude, and of the indoor nature, right? So we're talking indoor fuel cell, and
sure.
everything's inside. Most of everything's outside, which is also why New England doesn't have a lot of this fuel cell technology because of the weather, of our climate. And so when you see these in California, and really your Silicon
They can do it outside because it isn't that extreme.
You got it. You can do it outside there. For here, you can't. It's definitely a different animal when we're in New England.
Wow, that's exciting too.
It's amazing. But I really talk about the impact in the community because this really does have the ability to be so transformative for our town. Those jobs, that tax base, really putting New Britain on the map. We were calling ourselves the Silicon Valley of the East Coast. And hey, we may have the potential to be there if we ensure that this project gets done and done right, and all partners are at the table, and we're really grateful for our partners at the state for really making this happen.
Yeah. How much did they put into this? Are they putting into it?
So these initial conversations were had with former Governor Malloy, and we really had to try to grab his attention to kind of pull him in, and his former Deep Commissioner, and they were really instrumental in helping us push this forward. And if you remember, it was just about, I think like a year and a half ago, we had the announcement that the state was all in, and that PURA, our Public Utilities Regulatory Authority, was going to work with Energy and Innovation Park to get Eversource on board, to bring in all of the state partners to make it a reality. They brought in Connecticut Innovations as well, which was giving them the sales tax use agreement, which again makes these fuel cells much more affordable.
That's right. You got to make it competitive.
You got it. We have to compete with other states.
There's a lot of empty buildings in Connecticut, even in Connecticut.
You got it.
And there was competition in Connecticut too, right? As
Absolutely.
I understand,
There certainly was.
It had to get past that, and I know that.
I look at all the old factory buildings. It's not just New Britain, Naugatuck, Waterbury, Torrington.
You don't even have to look far.
No,
and
unfortunately.
Is there anything that could get in the way of this? Are we past the hurdles?
We are past the hurdles for phase 1 and 2.
So that gives us good to go for at least a couple of years.
Absolutely.
That's great.
Yeah.
So that's.
It's a big win. It's a big win that I think everyone can be proud of. And I don't think that our community will necessarily, it's a tough project to see, but we'll feel its impact within the next couple of years.
Does everybody get a break on their internet service because of this?
Hey, who knows? That could be one of the things that come from it, right?
Is there any consideration of technology and communications throughout the city? Now that this is on the radar?
Yeah, there is to an extent, and it all depends on your service provider and who that provider is. And we've started conversations with the CEN network about our school district and the municipality going on board together. We might be able to tie in a lot of our systems, a lot of our internet systems together through this. But again, time will tell because it's going to depend on who the operator of the data center is. And that we don't know yet.
Would it be one operator?
Yes. Yeah.
So we're talking, it's got to be a big player.
Yes, it'll be a nationwide player. And the energy, so let's think about it this way. Energy and Innovation Park LLC, this is the company that is buying the fuel cells and putting them in, right? Now they're going to go out for an RFP for a data center administrator. And there's a handful of them across the country. So we'll see what they come back with. Now the city is removed from that. Remember, this is a private deal.
Yeah.
So,
now, does the city own the land? Or
nope,
does
Stanley Works does.
Stanley Works. So Stanley Works is leasing this land to the developer?
You got it.
Okay.
A very, very unique setup, but a true public-private partnership that's making this happen, which is unique.
Why did Stanley not sell it to him?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, because this
Stanley-
this also kind of eliminates the issue of remediation. That we don't, probably everybody really doesn't know the true extent of, whether
Which is probably why
it's
Stanley
good
didn't
or bad.
want to sell it.
Yeah.
Right? Because they would be responsible.
And they'd have to turn it over, just
Yeah.
like you with a mortgage.
Yes.
You have to deal with the asbestos before anybody's going to give you a loan.
But now when you're reusing these old properties for this data center technology, you have to think about it, you know, it's not a brownfield. It's adaptive reuse. It's not, you don't have to worry about it because you're not putting a shovel in the ground.
What's the investment in this first phase before they even turn on anything?
Before they even turn on anything, I mean, you're talking about $100 million to start. I'm sure that that's going to increase exponentially, but when they have to get
But there's been
everything
no
hooked up and
investment
turned
like
on.
that in this city in decades,
No.
which is pretty exciting stuff. That's right. No problem there.
But you have to think, you know, it took almost 10 years to
Yeah.
make this a reality. I mean, I remember these conversations started to happen when my father was mayor.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And, you know, when they brought it back up to the table, as soon as I became mayor back in, it was November of 2013, it was, wow, well, how are we going to get this done?
Now, I heard something about, back then, something about some electrical conduit or something that went out of town that hadn't been used in a long time.
Oh, sure. So that's the line from Stanley Works. So it's from the Stanley property,
Yep.
and it still runs. And from what I understand, it's still active to this day. It goes all the way up to Enfield, to like a hydro-powered facility in Enfield, I believe.
So there is power coming down now?
It certainly could.
But it's.
I don't know. I don't know if it's still active.
But it's there. We know it's there.
Yeah, it's a hardened line that
but
goes
it's
all
not
the way
part
up.
of this project.
I don't
you know
believe
of,
so.
yeah.
No, at least not yet.
Yeah, you never know.
But think about it.
But
Could be.
there's possibilities that the city could have some of its services supplied by whoever is here.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
So the cloud could go down West Main Street and take a left at,
It could,
Burr.
but also think about how reliable it makes our internet connections and our cybersecurity too. Just having all of this data, this technology at our fingertips blocks away. And when you know that there's going to be people from all over New England that will be relying on it, it's right there in the heart
And
of
the
our
people
city.
that know how to operate
You
it
got
are
it.
around,
Are
have
right
to be
there.
around.
Yes.
And they have to be paid.
Yes.
And they have to spend their money someplace.
Here. And we want that.
Well, we're down to our last little bit of time here, and I thought
no.
we were going to get through a whole list of stuff, but this is really exciting
It
stuff.
is.
And we hope you'll come back
Yeah.
to share with us some of the other stuff, because there's so many things going on in town now.
So many things, and a lot of it, we started off talking about the Beehive Bridge, tying
Yep,
in the Energy
yep.
and Innovation Park. It's all transit-oriented development when you
Yep.
think about it,
Yep.
whether it's improvements in roads or actual infrastructure. And Columbus Commons, I know we didn't get a chance to talk about that too. 58 units of workforce housing,
Yep.
TOD, transit-oriented development, that'll open up in January.
Yep.
And they're working hard on that building. And the second phase will hopefully be coming next year, as long as I negotiate a fair deal first.
Well, hopefully, by the way, just so for the people that have actually seen these apartments going up on the old side of the police station, the old police station.
Yeah.
How big will the second phase be? Would that be?
Similar
compared
size.
to what's up there?
So
it would
a little
double
bit
the-
bigger, a little bit bigger. So it would double the amount of apartments, right? So we're talking about, I think it's 58 units. It could be more. It always was changing. But then the second phase, it will be a little bit larger of a footprint. But again, the final plans, we don't have it. I still haven't sold them the land yet. I wanted to make sure the first phase got done.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Well, Mayor Stewart, it's been wonderful having you on the show. Hopefully,
you.
we'll have you up when they're starting to rent those apartments.
Yeah, hopefully in the next couple of
And we'd love to have you
months.
back, and we'll talk about what else is going on in the city. Thanks again for
Thank
coming.
you, Mr. Schroeder. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us on this edition of Central Connecticut Now. We really appreciate your time and hope you have a great time until we meet again.